Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao on Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. I'm just opening up today because I've got a crazy day. The First Lady of the United States is coming to Raleigh tomorrow, and I'm hosting an event for her with one of my partners at my firm. So I've been scrambling around getting ready for her arrival tomorrow, and the event begins around 1 or 2. It's been a great month. We have the Vice President, the President, and the First Lady of the United States. With that being said, all eyes on Donald Trump, who is really on his way to clearing the path for nomination. I won't be on World Politics tonight, but hopefully they'll be talking about that. What does this mean, a Biden-Trump rematch? Meanwhile, lots of complaints about the Russian attack on Ukrainian planes. We'll be talking about the war in Ukraine. And, I think Nikki Haley, what are her plans next? Will she run for the presidency again? If she doesn't win, will she, I'm looking for my notes here, will she do something else? And basically, Zelensky is accusing the Kremlin of playing with the lives of Ukrainian prisoners after a Russian plane crashed in the Belgorod region. We just have a really, really changing world. And I think, and then today I'm going to NC State to talk about AI at an AI forum. And then on the WPTF, where we're going to be introducing and interviewing Jim Weaver, the secretary, and the deputy secretary to talk about the president's broadband plans and how it affects North Carolina. But keep in mind that over $25 billion has been invested in broadband in the United States. And in our state, North Carolina, 880,000 have been provided access. Internet bills are down by around $30 a month. And the recent announcement by the president last week is $82 million to bring on another 16,000 households. So we're making progress, but I'm curious as to where you are in the world. What is the internet access like? That's something I've never asked Sasha Starr and others around the world like Shaquille Latimer. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I got to get out of here in about 5 minutes, but I want to bring in Mark Lee. That's my update for the week.
Sounds good. That was a good update. And like you said, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and you gave a solid update on some of those. And all along those lines, we also have Sasha Starr with us, as well as Lee Newton Rhodes. And you did bring up this notion of AI and computer internet access. So maybe we can ask Sasha that right now as to how easy it is to get internet access in Canada. We don't have Shaquille with us today, but Sasha, how easy is it to get internet access in the various provinces of Canada, as Canada is divided into provinces and everything?
Well, probably depends where in Canada you live. Probably in far north part of the country, I'm not sure if internet is readily available, but there are also no people living there either. So if there are no people, there is no internet, most likely. But again, I'm not an expert on the demographics issue, and I'm not so sure if I'm the right person to answer. At least where I live, internet is readily available. Of course, I'm talking about high-speed quality internet, although sometimes for various reasons, not very often, say maybe once every maybe 2 months or so, there is interruption of service, and it could last 2 minutes. It could last sometimes 2 hours. Now, 2 hours is unacceptable, and even that they refund you the money that day of service was not available. But that's not really. It's not really a viable option, because when you sign a contract with an internet provider, you accept it as a done thing. It's there, and you must have it. Period.
I got to run, but I want to just get you real quickly. What I'll add to that is that what we're finding in the United States, I don't know if it's like this in Canada, the biggest area is the rural areas, right? And up until now, it's been the private carriers that have dominated. So they've been just charging so much money that people who can't afford it. So this is helping. But But
And by the way, Steve, I know you got to run, but I was seeing that because definitely he made that announcement here in North Carolina. But there are swing states, so apparently this is a big issue in the swing states because Biden is to announce $5 billion in new infrastructure projects in Wisconsin, and we do know that Wisconsin is a swing state as well. So he's supposed to go on the offensive in the Midwest, focusing on the economy.
Well, this is positive. He's focusing on the economy, and Baru, so I think that's a good positive thing. And I'll be back probably tomorrow and next week. Sasha, real quickly on Ukraine, Zelensky really upset about these plane attacks. Any insight there of what's going on?
Well, obviously, this is action of Russian spies like FSB. That's quite obvious. And on subject of Ukraine, the Russian attacks continue, and they're getting more and more ferocious, and bombardments of civil targets and killing Ukrainians. And there are traitors here in the United States from Republican Party. I wouldn't even call Republican Party, it's the party of Trump. That's all what it is. There is no Republican Party anymore. And the party of Trump and this little Mike, what's his name, speaker?
Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson, yes, he admitted that on every issue he is discussing it with Donald Trump. And this is really treason for various reasons. Number one, Trump today is nobody. He is the Speaker of the House, is number 3 person in the United States. And he is consulting really a criminal and well-known crook about such important issues. This is a treason, and Mike Johnson has to be thrown out of the House immediately. And they're purposely delaying now, not only help the Ukraine, but even solving the border issues, because they're afraid that if it will be all solved now, then Biden may get some benefits from that. So they're delaying, and finally, I think the Senate decided to go ahead with the deal, even despite that the House is not indicating one way or another that they're in or out. So Mitch McConnell wants to go ahead and make a deal in Senate regarding the border issues and the deal with Ukraine and so on. This is really a horrible. This party of Trump is becoming, especially when they're saying that they want the economy to collapse, they want to wipe out all the 401 savings for America. This is anti-American party. This is a criminal party. This is a party which is playing Putin's book, and this is all what there is to it. They have to be all arrested and put in jail.
Hey, Sasha, along those same lines and everything, we mentioned yesterday around Texas and the Supreme Court, but apparently Texas is ignoring the Supreme Court ruling and all along those lines. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or Lee Newton Rhodes, or anybody else that even wants to chime in from our audience, because apparently they are continuing to add razor wire along the border, despite the fact that they were ordered by the Supreme Court to get rid of that wire and all along those lines. And the Democrats are calling on Biden to seize control of the Texas National Guard. So it does look like there is some impasse going on in that space. And there is actually some other things going on with the GOP as well, as apparently the Arizona GOP chair resigned amid leaked Kari Lake audio controversy. So that person has resigned after those leaked tapes were out there. But I didn't know if you
Hey guys, I gotta run. But anyway, I think it's going to be continued border issues coming up every day, and so this is going to be a negative issue for the president. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. I think there will be more and more controversies because there are a lot of unresolved questions. What is the business of state and what is the business of federal government? And even such simple case as taking Trump out of the ballot in certain states, like the one in Colorado, and another one is Maine, I think. there has to be a ruling from the Supreme Court, one way or another. And on one hand, you may argue that election is something that state has to conduct anyway. It requires to be valid and thoughtful. And if seven in Colorado, 7 judges out of 7 declared that obviously Trump was involved in insurrection. Okay. Now, once that ruling is done, so if that alone, forget about the second part of it, is a 4-3, they decided that he should not be on the ballot. But when 7-0, that he was involved in insurrection, so Supreme Court now has full hands to deal with the 7-0 precedent, because they have to say now that these judges in Colorado, they're not qualified, their opinion is wrong, and they have to explain why it's wrong. We'll see which way it will go, but I think,
Sasha,
it's quite difficult. Yeah.
I got a question for both of y'all. First, Sasha, do states have the right to change the qualifications that were set down in the Constitution for who can run for president? Does each state, can they just add things, B, C, or D that they want, in addition, besides the normal things of age and citizenship and birth?
You're talking about whether the president is an officer.
No, I'm not talking about Trump. I just in general, can states add additional factors that they feel they want for someone to be on the ballot, putting Trump aside?
I don't think that it's ever happened, and obviously it's not the normal practice so far.
So they have to go by the Constitution, whatever it says. They don't have that ability.
They have to go.
Putting Trump aside. I'm not talking about Trump.
No. I think you're right. They have to go by the Constitution.
And I'd have to
Mark, as far as the border is concerned, Mark, what are states supposed to do when the federal government is ignoring law that Congress had passed?
Well,
when the federal government does not enforce law and it's detrimental to states, are states allowed to act?
Well, I mean,
to protect their interests.
I mean, the state has acted, and it is acted by putting that razor there. And like I said, the Supreme Court overturned that, and you're going by the laws of the Supreme Court. So now this is a battle, and that's what I think Kim was referring to, that could go down between the federal government and the state government. So, I mean, it could be one of those state rights issues and all along those lines. But as it stands right now, it is the Supreme Court is the law of the land. So they have
well, no. That's not true, Mark. That's not true. I'm sorry to correct you. The Congress is the law of the land. Congress legislature passes laws. Supreme Court does not pass laws. They do not make laws. They interpret, but they don't make laws.
Well, that's fair enough. They interpret them and maybe don't make them, and all along those lines. But I'm just saying that is where a lot of the decisions are made, and a lot of them are upheld. That Congress has upheld, and all along those lines, we can look at the important decisions that were made in civil rights, in women's rights, and a number of other things. So even there are some folks that would argue that it should be state by state with the abortion issue. And that's what some people argued with Dobbs and all along those lines. But like I said, that is where we seem to be heading in that general direction. I've got some lawyer friends, and I may bring them on because I'm not sure of the qualifications and whether the states, because I think the states can make some amendments to what is being done and how and who runs and all along those lines. But I'm not 100% sure of that. So since I'm not sure, I'm not going to answer that question if I don't know the answer to it. So I can look it up and I can try to find out. But I definitely know that I have legal friends, and I will try to bring some of them on so we can find out specifically if states can make rules, because apparently they're making them left and right. Because even
states have their own legislators, the states can make rules, make laws.
They can make
that affect that state.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but within those laws in those states, to your question, I don't know if they can change the qualifications of what is needed for running. I mean, that even comes down. I mean, wasn't that part of the issue around sanctuary cities? Because some cities wanted to be sanctuary cities and some cities didn't want to be.
No. The sanctuary cities were cities that were ignoring laws. It's like we're ignoring whether it's gun laws or immigration laws or what have you. We're going to ignore those laws that are on the books. We're not enforcing them.
Right. And
you can come here and you'll have sanctuary because we will ignore ICE or fill in the blank.
Right.
Those laws, we will not enforce them in this district.
Right. And that's what some people would say would be somebody making their own rules and everything. Now, whether it was
Well, no. Sanctuary cities, they were not making laws. The city councils were not passing laws.
I didn't say they were passing.
They were just not enforcing laws that were on the books. The cities and states have the ability, their legislatures, to make laws. I mean, that's the whole purpose of them.
Right. And like I said, and there have been even cases where there have been city councils that have voted one way or the other. I mean, we've even seen city councils that have made votes around the whole notion of support for Palestine or support for Israel and everything. Now, can any of those things?
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I'm not going one way or the other, but a lot of times they'll do support causes and stuff like that. Just with their stamp of approval and things that really that has no effect. Just say we like this or we like that, and it's not a law. It's just their opinion on current events.
Yeah, it's not a law. It's their opinion. I mean, I'm sure that went back as far as the Vietnam War and probably even World War II. Shucks, there might have been some of that in the Civil War, for all I know, and all along those lines. But the one thing I was going to say, and I was just curious to hear Sasha's thoughts about this as we get back to some of the world stuff. But to your point and everything, apparently Maine, which is the other state, has dismissed the appeal of Trump to get on the ballot. So it is 2 states that he is not on the ballot of, and they are refusing to weigh in on the Trump 2024 ballot eligibility. So it does sound like that's going to go to the Supreme Court as well, and the Supreme Court will make its decision. It'll probably impact Maine, Colorado, and any other states that might be thinking about.
Mark, I have a question for you. I don't have an answer. Maybe Sasha does. For those states that say, you know what, Trump or someone else cannot be on the ballot, and if they have a write-in option, do they just ignore those write-ins?
I mean, we just saw that with New Hampshire. Biden was not on the ticket. I forgot the reason that he was not on the ticket, but he won by write-in because he won against RFK and against.
Right. So the point being, if Trump is not on a ballot in a particular state, some states still have that ability that they can still vote for him as a write-in.
Yeah, they could definitely do that. I mean, we just saw that with New Hampshire because, like I said, he was not on the ballot, President Biden, but he won, and actually he won in a write-in campaign and all along those lines because people were not thrilled with either RFK or Marianne Williamson, I believe is the other candidate that is out there for the Democrats,
right,
and all along those lines. And like I said, neither one of them have strong support, so they did get that write-in campaign and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Trump's very popular, so he would probably win using the write-in, but it depends on the area. Colorado is a very liberal state, so I don't know that he would win a write-in there. And I'm not even sure about Maine because Maine might be considered liberal as well. So definitely that'll be interesting to see what's going on there in that space. Before I get to Sasha's question, I just saw something else that it might be of interest to people, but there is a notion, because like I said earlier, speaking of state rights, a lot of the abortion issue is going to be on a state-by-state basis, and it looks like the Texas teen birth rate has risen for the first time in 15 years after the abortion ban, and they are saying that that is affecting the Latino population. So,
Mark, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Should we just get rid of the states and just have a federal government and one rule for everybody, or should we keep the 50 states and they the way it was intended by the founders, or something in between?
I mean, I've always been a fan of the different states. I think the states and regions, because there are different regions as well. So I've always been a fan of the various states, and all along those lines, as I've said before, I'm actually a fan of even some additional states, because I have no problem with Puerto Rican independence and it joining as the 50.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My question is not just having states like schools and what have you, but having states with their own jurisdiction within those states, the way it was originally intended.
I mean, are you saying that the Constitution did not intend to have a federal government? It only wanted state by state?
Not as massive as we're having now. No, otherwise, why have a 10th Amendment?
I mean,
just give everything to the federal government and let them do whatever they want, and we're just and get rid of all the state and city legislatures, because the federal government will be the one giving laws for the country. And just get rid of that.
But I mean, there are federal laws just like there are state laws, and in some cases there are local laws. So you're just saying that we should just have one.
No, I'm just throwing the question out there. That's all I'm saying. I'm just throwing the question out there.
and I don't know whether the people's answers are, and most people that I know are glad to have the different regions, because I mean, regions are various, different regions have different appeals to different people. Like, and then there are
I tend to agree with that view.
huh?
I tend to agree with that view. The less federal government, the better it is. And let the locals, as much as possible, decide, as long as the Constitution is silent on issues.
I mean, well, that's part of the issue, even with politics, is a number of people will say that a lot of people pay attention to the big issues and to the issues that are on the federal level. And I can tell you that there are a number of people that vote for the federal and in some cases the state elections, but they don't pay enough attention to the local elections. And that is actually where a lot of the important decisions to your day-to-day life are impacted. But you got a lot of folks that see that as like a sideshow. And I personally think that that is wrong.
It's become that, has it not?
Huh?
It's become a sideshow, has it not?
Well, I mean, has the federal government become a sideshow? I'm talking
Yeah.
about the local government being. A lot of people think the local government as the kind of thing that they don't pay attention to because it doesn't matter to them, even though it does matter to them significantly. Because a lot of those departments, be they sanitation or be they even some of the ones that deal with your pets or a number of housing issues, are locally based, including some of the medical things that are going on, because there are local medical decisions made as well. But a lot of people don't pay any attention to that. I mean, when was the last time you had a friend ask you who your soil commissioner was? And yes, I know there's soil commissioners in New York, just like they're down here as well. So when was the last time you had a friend ask you who that was, or if they were going to run for it, and all along those lines? So that's my point. Is that
Or what one is?
I think that the U.S. is too large country and too diverse country to leave everything to a federal government to decide any single issue. I'll tell you one thing.
Give me an example, please.
Even Canada, which is population-wise, is 10 times smaller than the United States. Yet, for example, such an important issue as healthcare is provided by provinces, not by the federal government, because provinces are very well entrenched of what's locally required, whether somewhere to erect a new hospital, new facilities, or anything like this. It cannot be done federally, and it's country population-wise, as I said, 10 times smaller than the United States.
Sasha, in America, we have Medicaid and Medicare. Those are federal programs, maybe administered by the states, but they're federal programs over healthcare.
It could be. And in Canada, each province has its own health insurance plan, and everyone who lives in that province is automatically a member of that plan, and it doesn't cost you even a penny. Okay.
Are some of these plans different from one province to the other?
Not as far as I know. Each province has its own health insurance plan.
No, I understand. They each have their own, but are they similar? Or are they different in some significant ways? Maybe
they're similar. So that's why let's see, I live in Ontario and I will happen to be in Quebec or British Columbia or somewhere else, and I would need medical care. I would be provided just same as if I would live in that province, because they're all similar, if not the same.
I mean,
I know.
Yeah, Lee, along those same lines, and I don't know the answer, so I don't know what your thoughts are, but there are some national programs, including in education, that people have praised, and all along those lines, there was the notion of some of the food programs, and definitely Head Start, even though some people say that some of those programs were created by civil rights organizations, some that were even militant civil rights organizations, because I do know some of the Black Panthers have given credit to some of those programs as well. But what are your thoughts around those programs that might be social needs?
Not speaking specifically one program or the other, but I believe it was JFK. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Who started the Federal Department of Education, where there's no basis for it in the Constitution. It's just totally unconstitutional and should be abolished. That's a states' right issue. Each state for its own in terms of education. If you have any source different than mine, please let me know.
No,
I think it should be abolished.
You think it should be abolished? I mean, but would you support something like Head Start as a national program? So
no, I think some of these programs are very worthwhile, but they should be done on the state level, not with the federal government. Very worthwhile programs.
I mean, would you get rid of, I understand that, would you get rid of, because I know there's some people within the Republican Party that want to do that, would you get rid of the IRS and some of the other departments as well, because there are a number of departments that you can make that same argument, because there are some people that have said that that is a department that was created maybe out of need and in order to get some revenue. But as we are, as Nick always points out, trillions of dollars in debt and everything, if we're not getting the money from said programs, would you get rid of them as well? Would you get rid of the FCC, which is supposed to monitor things like radio and television and things along those lines? So I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's a shame Nick is not on the program today, because we spoke about like the FCC and all these other agencies in terms of the Chevron case that now is in the courts. Why are all these federal agencies making law when we have Congress is supposed to be the only body that makes law? It seems like Congress is not doing their job and letting, all these agencies do something that they're not allowed to do constitutionally.
Yeah, like I said, we'd have to find a lawyer on the show that can talk about that. And Nick is actually.
Nick brought this up the other day.
Yeah, he brought it up the other day. And like I said, we'll have to figure out his thoughts around that. Coming back to one of the world issues, and that's what I was going to ask you about, Sasha, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. I actually was reading yesterday, and I think I mentioned on a Friends podcast and everything. It looks like Mr. Putin is finally admitting that he's losing the war. So he's saying that he's losing the war, and he mentioned places like it begins with a D. I can't think of the name of the city, but he definitely mentioned some places where he felt that he was losing the war, and he was saying this on TASS and on some of their public media. So I was actually shocked when I read that he is actually admitting that the war is not going the way that he wanted to go, and all along those lines. But I was just wondering your thoughts on that. I think it was the Donetsk region. Now that I think about it, and they were definitely losing in that area. But what is your thoughts about this? And had you heard this? Because apparently he was very much widely reported in TASS and I guess some of the other things that covered Russian media. So it seems like he is admitting several years into the war that things aren't going the way he wanted it to go. So I just wanted your take on that. And if you had been hearing that he might actually be admitting that he is losing this war.
Okay, you should understand one thing, that what started as a special military operation almost 2 years ago, the goal was to very quickly overtake Ukraine, specifically the capital, Kyiv, install its puppet government, and this way to stop Ukraine joining European Union, NATO, and all that stuff. All that backfired and got Russia into prolonged war now. It's almost 2 years long, and nobody knows how long it will continue. But so far, he could get away with all that, except that it's now over 330,000 Russians were killed. His original force of 190,000 that he started this operation, this 190,000 people who are specially trained, and which was the essence of Putin's military strength, they were all killed, decimated, no longer exist. Plus, more and more he makes from time to time military conscripts available. He's taking people from jails and so on. I remember that the Soviet Union lost 15,000 people in 10 years of its war in Afghanistan. Now they lost in less than 2 years 330,000. Remember, population of Russia is almost twice less than the Soviet Union.
Sasha?
So it's not easy to hide from population where almost now every family, many families, I would say, lost their fathers, their brothers, their fathers, and so on. It's very, very difficult, and there must be explanation what's going on sooner or later. Yes, Lee.
Just a quick question. Even when the war is over, forget about whether Russia wins or loses, the number of dead Russians, it got to be massively, the way it affects their economy, because these people are not going back to work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It will affect the economy major way. Right now, there is no economy in Russia. It's all war times economy. They're producing, they're working 24 hours a day, shifts. Women are now, and the same thing like during Second World War, where they stopped everything and started to produce only the weapons, the ammunition, and all that stuff. Same thing is happening today. Plus, they're definitely getting help from North Korea, Iran, probably China, but not openly. But there are some ways to do that, and it's not gonna work. It's now Ukraine has its own problems, huge problems, but Ukraine is fighting for its country. Remember, let's see. I heard a very interesting comment. Imagine that you live in a house. There are 10 rooms in your house. All of a sudden, you have invaders who are taking 2 of your 10 rooms, and they're staying there. They're not going to disappear. Furthermore, they want to go further and take your other rooms slowly, maybe 1, maybe 2 more, maybe then 5 more, and so on. Now, that invaders, they have their own house, which is 10 times as big as your little house. They don't care. They want your house. They're staying in your territory, and they want more and more and more. What's your choice? Are you going to say, oh, please, okay, take it all, and you have nowhere to go. You don't have any other house. So what you going to do?
I mean, most people are going to fight back. There's no doubt about that. And that's what Ukraine has been doing and doing it very valiantly and all along those lines. But I did have a question based on what Lee just said and all along those lines, which is that we live in a world economy. And that's what a lot of people praise this kind of world economy and how it is less just one country's economy, but it is a more global economy. So I just wondered, and you are involved in the investment space, should this war end, say, hopefully, and I doubt it, but let's say with the end either in February or March, what is the impact of the war going to be on the global economy? And not just this war, but also the war in Israel and several other wars that are going around the country. So I just wanted y'all's take on the global economy should the war end to like I said, next month or the month after. And I know that's some heavy speculation because I don't see it ending that soon. But should it end, what would be the impact on the global economy?
I think, generally speaking, the wars are very positive for the economy because there is a production of the ammunition, the shell.
I have to follow. Sasha, I got to follow up with something you just said. And I don't disagree with you. Sasha, you just said that wars are very productive to the economy. Would you put it past a government, United States government or any other, to specifically start a war, keep it going to help the economy?
Hold on a second. Lee, there have been several people that have said that has been done several times in history and everything. There are people that have talked about that.
Isn't that sad?
When they talk about the industrial military complex, there are several people that have said that wars have been started, including some of the small wars in order, and definitely some major wars in order to generate better economy and everything. There are some people, and I'm not saying that they're right, that speculate that that was a significant factor during the Depression era and all along those lines. Now, whether that's true or not, that's up to for the historians to debate and argue and all along those lines. But I have heard that argument before that we are.
I wouldn't put it past our government to do that.
Well, if you remember the involvement of the United States in the First World War, there was a war in Europe. It didn't have to do anything with the United States at all. The United States was not involved in first 4 years of war. They didn't have any interest. On one side, they had the Russian Empire, Austro-Hungarians, Germany. On another side, you have Entente with England and France and so on. So what United States has to do with all that? Absolutely nothing. Yet they got involved in war. And this was a very practical decision because thanks to that war, the United States became the most prominent economic power in the world just because of the involvement in First World War. If it wouldn't be for that, the Europeans, they would kill each other and the war may go for another 5 years, or maybe even 10 years or so on. With the United
Was
States,
there a hook to get them in there? Was there an excuse they had to enter? You know, like their Pearl Harbor or something?
Pearl Harbor is different because Japan attacked U.S. interests.
No, I understand that. What happened to prompt them to enter into the World War I? Was there an excuse they gave?
No, but they just felt that they want to be part of it. There was no any real reason formulated by then President of the United States, I think Wilson. They just got involved, of course, on the side of England and France and the forces. And the war was over very, very soon because Germany, who were fighting on both fronts, and although they made peace with Russia, Russia, which was winning the war because they were on the side of Entente with England and France, and later United States entered the war. Instead, they made them separated thanks to Bolsheviks with Lenin in power. They made their own separate peace with Germany and conceded enormous chunks of territory to Germany. Well, Germany at that time was already losing the war. And in fact, a few months later, it lost the war. So this is actually quite interesting situation.
And to answer your question, because I looked it up, because that's what I can do here and everything. But you are right that during World War I, which is back in 1917, they had actually declared neutrality because apparently that was the view of the nation, that it would be impartial in thought as well as in action. But there were 5 reasons apparently why the United States joined World War I, and they give them as the Lusitania, because in early 1915 Germany introduced a policy of unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic. That this meant U-boats were hunting and seeking merchant ships without warning. So there was some of that going on, and among there was one that took down a ship that had about 128 Americans, and that caused widespread outrage in the U.S. And then there was the German invasion of Belgium. So definitely that was something that was seen as a reason to go in. And American loans, you got to love the loans, because apparently the U.S. had a vested financial interest in the outcome of the war in Europe. American businesses and banks made huge loans to the Allies, and if they didn't win, they were unlikely to get their money back. So there was that notion. And then the reintroduction of unrestricted submarine warfare as well, and then the Zimmerman telegram, because apparently in early in January of 1917, the German diplomatic representative in Mexico received a secret telegram penned by German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmerman. It proposed a secret alliance between Germany and Mexico should the United States enter the war. If the Central Power were to win, Mexico would be free to annex territory in New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona. Unfortunately for Germany, the telegram was intercepted by the British and decrypted by Room 40. So apparently there was this notion even of what we're dealing with today, because apparently Mexico was involved in some of the reasons that we got involved in the war as well. But those are 5 of the reasons that were given. So there were some direct interests that we had, and all along those lines. But that's what I found, and I'm sure there's some other history.
Yes, I agree, Mark. There were these reasons. Of course, they are very different from Second World War, when there was attack on Pearl Harbor,
right,
which forced the U.S. to join the Second World War. That's for sure.
No doubt about it. Is there anything concerning? I'd love to hear from both of you about this notion of, you mentioned earlier, of North Korea, because North Korea has said that it has tested a cruise missile. It is flaunting its new nuclear capable weapon, and it is saying that it has tested a new strategic cruise missile. It's even given it a name, Hwaseo 331, and everything along those lines. So I just wonder y'all's thoughts around that, because we definitely know that the gentleman that runs in North Korea has got some very much interesting views and things that he would like to have done in that region of the world. But I just wanted your take on North Korea having this nuclear capability. Should they actually have the nuclear capability?
Well, unfortunately, the nuclear capabilities of North Korea deriving obviously from Russia and China. Without these 2 countries, they would never have any nuclear capabilities. So the problem is that if they will ever start nuclear attack against Asians like Japan or South Korea, or even against the United States, the China and Russia, technically speaking, are away from any responsibilities. And so whoever is going to punish, they have to punish only North Korea, unless they will find proven ties between North Korea and Russia and China, or one of those two countries. So that's, frankly, America should give ultimatum to North Korea to get rid of its nuclear arsenal sooner or later, I think.
Sasha, did North Korea develop it on their own? I just vaguely remember something with Bill Clinton with some agreement. Nothing to do with Russia and China.
What makes you think so?
I vaguely remember something Bill Clinton had some type of agreement that they just abused and they just ignored. And then they gave them the ability to develop on their own. So not similar to what we're doing with Iran, but something independent of China and Russia. I might be wrong on that.
And
I
I'm
just
not
have
sure.
these.
I have difficulties to imagine that Iran, which is much more advanced country and economy, still doesn't have its own nuclear arsenal. And North Korea, so backward and poor country, already has it for so many years. And
I tend to agree with you. I don't think we're being told the truth.
Hey, Lee and Sasha, along those same lines, and just really quickly, and we still got a few more minutes to go, and I did have a question about one of the other world economies and their unifying or getting together. But just really quickly, what is our thoughts? Because this is an issue that I've been wondering about, because there are a number of countries that we do not like, but we have basically trained them. And all along those lines, we can go down to Nicaragua, we can go down to even some of the Middle Eastern countries. I mean, some people would say that we literally trained the pilots that came and flew into 9/11 and all along those lines. So I do know that a lot of times we are doing things with people that may not be in our best interest, but we see them as allies because they are strategically placed, for lack of a better term, and everything. But then sometimes they turn their backs on the hand that fed them, and sometimes even bite the hand that fed them, and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on this, because this has been going on for a number of years and a number of decades, maybe even centuries, because there are quite a few allies that we trained, but they were then they turned their back. Some people would even argue that the Philippines did that. But I was just wondering your take, and if this is something we should be concerned about from a military standpoint and a United States standpoint.
I'm not sure if it's fair to compare the pilots to 9/11, because the United States companies did train them, but not knowingly that they were, had any vested interest against America. We do sometimes train people who are not friends of America, hoping that they're better than more worse enemies. And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. In Afghanistan, we trained a lot of people there who, and left weapons behind that I don't think is in our interest. So there's a lot of mistakes there.
Yep, and that's what the argument is that some people, and there's some people that think that it was done deliberately, and if you want to go down the conspiracy theory path, there are some people that would even say that with 9/11 that we might have known more than we actually knew. Now, whether that's true or not, that's a whole nother question. But the other question I was going to get to, and I don't know, Ceci Kemp just popped in, whether she joins the conversation or not, we'll find out, and all along those lines. But that being said, what is our thoughts around, because, India is a power player now as well, and apparently they are meeting with Macron, so they are looking at some trade deals. So should we be concerned about a India-French alliance and all along those lines, as they are also a player, particularly India, and it looks like they are having a meeting around economics, because Emmanuel Macron has landed in Japan today, so I'm sure that they'll be getting around India, and there might be some ideas of what they can do together. But I was just wondering, from a global standpoint, how concerned are you about India's power plays, whatever those power plays may be?
Sasha, to you.
For me, India is a mystery. It's a largely English-speaking population, should be natural ally of the United States, England, and other English-speaking countries. It appears to be so, but they're definitely trying to diversify into Russian interests and probably French now and so on. So this is very, to me, mysterious situation. I'm not a friend of India. I'm not enemy either. And let them do whatever they want to do. What can you do? The population is almost 1.5 billion people. who accept English. They don't have a unifying language. They don't understand each other except when they speak English. So I can't tell you one way or another what to think of it.
And they have some.
Mark, Kim keeps putting in the comment section about Boeing. Do you want to talk about that for a few minutes?
What about Boeing? She'd probably have to explain that in more detail. I do know that Boeing had some issues and all along those lines. So
with the doors coming off the planes.
Yeah, said Delta just had the nose of a plane fall off on a runway recently. Other planes have had their doors pop open and bolt shake loose. I think it's a lack of pride in work and cutting corners. So it might be that there are some sloppy mistakes going on in the industrial area and in the manufacturing of a lot of things. And that could even be something that is impacting. And that's where I was going to get to with some of the other stories, and one of the other stories, because apparently in Argentina, there is the trade unions are organizing a strike, a nationwide strike against what they're saying is Javier Milei's far right agenda. So thousands are striking against the Argentinian president, and maybe they're going to try to do some stuff about workers' rights and even some of the ways that things are constructed, because there are a lot of people that are not happy with the products that are being created, be that here or other parts of the world as well. So I think
not happy because of quality, or just that no need for them.
There's a couple of issues. I mean, there are people that are upset because AI may be taking their jobs. There are people that are upset because they're not getting paid enough. There are people that are upset because they feel that the fairness in the ways of the manufacturing plants are not all that great. And that's not just here, but in the rest of the world as well.
I get all that. But I think Kim's comment was about the quality.
Right.
Why are these products failing?
Right, and that's what she's asking, is why the products are failing. And I think she's asking about the American workmanship, because we used to have deep pride in our workmanship and in this ability to get things done and to make some great products and everything. But maybe there is people that are being sloppy and not being fair in what they are doing, and particularly in their.
Well, why do you think that is? You want to throw something out there, or should I comment?
I mean, you can comment. I mean, there could be some people.
I think it's two reasons.
Okay.
One is this very short-sightedness of CFOs and management, where they're being financially rewarded for short-term stock gains, profits. So they're cutting back on R&D, on investments in manufacturing, and also it's the workers themselves. If we're hiring people for reasons other than meritocracy, then I think we're going to see suffering in terms of quality of products. Hopefully, we're not going to see that in terms of pilots, in terms of effects. Planes crashing. But I think meritocracy, when you devalue that over other goals, whether it's in the military and whether it's in sports, Hollywood, in industry, manufacturing, it has effects. And we're seeing that. The lack of quality now in manufacturing.
You say that, but if there is a shortage and if there is a press to address that shortage by targeting certain groups that may not have been thought about going into that field, and I don't know that that is necessarily.
Mark, were you ever prevented from going into any field in your life?
No, I'm just saying, but I'm saying in meritocracy, because you mentioned the meritocracy and all along those lines, there has been a push, because I know I mentioned it before. Hampton has got a new program. I think Ante has gotten some new programs. So there have been a push in certain HBCUs to create programs, and that's historically Black colleges and universities, programs around pilots and creating quality pilots. So they're not trying to.
Oh, that's all great. That's all fine. I'm in favor of that.
Right.
Offer more things to more people. But when it comes to actually hiring and employing and keeping employed, if you're not doing it based on meritocracy, I mean, can you see some professional sports surviving if they had anything other than meritocracy?
There's some professional sports where some people don't play their best. I can tell you about the Philadelphia 76ers and their poor tackling and all along those lines. So I don't know that would be an example of good meritocracy, because that was some of the worst tackling that I've ever seen. And they're supposed to be trained as professionals to know how to do that and all along those lines. But they were missing wide open tackles and all in that space. So even in sports, the meritocracy system doesn't always work, because some people don't buy into the system.
And eventually people will stop showing up to the games, buying tickets and watching them.
Well,
if they continue that.
If they continue that, then people will not be fans of them much longer. That is very true. But I'm just saying that it is a two-way street, because you have to buy into the system, whether it's a corporation or a nonprofit, and all along those lines. Because I'm sure the coaches were teaching them how to tackle correctly. Now, the fact that they were playing the Keystone Cops and not doing that, that's on them and everything. So that's my point, is that sometimes you have to get even on the corporate level, you have to get people to buy into the system. I don't know that there are a number of people that are working at Boeing that are sitting there trying to deliberately build things that are going to break down and all along those lines.
No, I don't know, Mark. I didn't say that. But when you can employ people and you're not employing based on meritocracy, you're going to get people who, as good as they are, they're not as good as they should be. So it's maybe no fault of their own. They just don't have the ability. You're not going to go to a concert where you're going to get kindergartners there playing when you're going to Carnegie Hall because they're just the only ones available that night. They don't belong there. These people don't belong if they can't do the job.
I would like to ask you, are you aware that the people on Boeing assembly line, especially in South Carolina, who were responsible for actually putting these doors, they are being paid $9 an hour, okay? That maybe explains a few things.
I understand.
Are you saying that they should be paid more because they're basically being paid almost close to minimum wage and everything along those lines, and that maybe they are not giving their best effort, because a lot of times people will not give their best effort if they are just...
Or maybe they don't have the training. If you're only paying them $9 an hour, you're obviously not investing in quality employees. And I agree with you, Sasha. That's on management.
So that's one of the reasons what's happened to Boeing planes. Simply because people are either incapable, or they don't care, or they just can't do it any better.
Or they're not able to. They don't have the training.
They're unable. Oh, well, it's a very simple job, but still you have to do it on a certain level. And if you don't, then you get what you get.
Sometimes the simplest jobs can be the most boring, and can definitely get into that notion of rote work and all along those lines. I mean, I remember once working on a assembly line type job. I believe it was Bristol Myers and all along those lines, where I was putting in literally the aspirins and all in that kind of space and everything. And I can tell you, get very rote work type work, and you have to find things to do to kind of keep yourself engaged. And I know a number of people, not just myself, that were doing things to keep themselves engaged. Otherwise, they probably would have gone slightly crazy from the boredom of the job. So I imagine that that's probably also what could be happening as well. So people might be distracted because they might be trying to find things to do if it is rote work. And I've never built a plane, so I don't know what it all involves and all along those lines. But I did have a quick question as we're heading down toward the end. And this is a question I was just curious about. And I mentioned it on one side with, I believe it was one of the totalitarian governments. It might have been Iran, but this one is actually coming out of one of our Western countries. How much should we be paying attention? And this is for you, Lee, but if you want to jump in as well, Sasha, to the mental state of our folks that are involved in crime, because apparently a British Indian teen killer will not face murder trial. This is in Nottingham over there in Britain, due to mental illness. So they're going to be detained in a high security hospital. But apparently the triple killer heard voices and visited M15 to ask them to stop controlling him. So he went over there to the military and was saying, look, y'all are trying to control me and y'all need to stop this. So now they are saying that due to the mental illness, even though he was involved in this horrible killings and all along those lines, this triple killing, that he doesn't need to be going to prison or even being executed and everything. So I just wondering, do we pay enough attention in y'all's mind to the mental health of these individuals? Because I mean, a lot of people have even used mental health as a defense and everything, whether it is a true defense or one that their lawyers help them with and everything. But how important or how much credence should we give to the mental health defense in your mind? And this is for both of you, but I'll start with you, Lee.
I think a lot, because a lot of these crimes, who other than a mentally deranged person would do them? Right. Why did they get treatment before the crime? I don't know. And maybe jail is not appropriate for them because of their mental status, but maybe they just need to be institutionalized and they need help. Obviously, they're not a well-functioning individual for whatever, fill in the blank on the crime. you or I or Sasha, we would never even dream of doing these things. Why are these people doing them with maybe with remorse, maybe not? But why? How could they commit them? In terms of October 7th in Israel, a lot of these terrorists, they were trained for periods of time, long periods, and also given drugs just to overcome their inhibitions among to do things.
Yeah.
But to put them back into society is not the answer.
Yeah, I agree. And there's got to be ways to deal with it when they go back in society, and even give them some sort of ways to get reacclimated back in.
And some people can't. I'm not sure pedophiles can ever be cured.
It's good. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because speaking of world politics, and I don't feel sorry for this man, but at the same time, I imagine that we'll be reading about him shortly, because he probably won't last that long. But an Austrian man who apparently raped his captive daughter over 24 years is going to be moved into regular prison. And from what I've heard of prison sentences and prison nerves and all along those lines, whether it's here or whether it's in other parts of the world, you don't really make it that long if you got those kind of charges in even the regular prison population. So they're going to say that Joseph Fritzl, who raped and imprisoned his daughter, can join the regular prison population. So I'm thinking that he might not, and like I said, not trying to project badness on him or all on those lines, but personally, I don't think that he'll probably be lasting that long. But maybe they have.
It was in the news this morning. I think it's Alabama. In terms of capital punishment and using nerve gas.
That was in the news. I mentioned that recently. They were using nerve gas and all along those lines, and some people are up in arms because it is a different form of punishment and all along that kind of way. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
And some people just are opposed to capital punishment regardless.
Yep, there are some people that are opposed to capital punishment regardless, and there's
I personally have a problem with it. Yeah.
You have a problem with capital punishment in general? Yes. I mean, part of it is
in general.
Yeah, and I know that I think even our own person, because he's brought it up, so I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but I think that even Shaquille has been involved with the Innocent Project and some other things along those lines. But yeah, there have been a number of cases where people were found to have not been guilty. As a matter of fact, I think there was a recent case where the person had recently spent about, I want to say 30 or 35 years for a crime that they did not commit, and they just recently got out. And I think that might have been in one of
That's a valid concern. That's not mine, but that's not my problem with capital punishment, even though that is a significant problem and is a concern. Mine is I just value life, period.
Right. You're just a pro-life.
I don't like playing God.
You're just pro-life in general. You don't want to, you're not.
Yes.
You're not for abortions or for the whole notion
capital punishment
or a number of others. And there are some people that have conflicting views on both of them, and all along those lines. Apparently looks like that's even coming up in the news here in North Carolina, because apparently there's a news that rape kit tests North Carolina, so Durham can test sexual assault kits and find the culprits and prosecute sex crime cold cases thanks to a grant. So they just got a grant in order to be able to go back and find some cases that were old cases and cold cases, and maybe have those cases renewed and the guilty brought to justice. And some people may be in favor of that. Some people may not be in favor of that as well, and everything. And we had some other.
Why would they not be in favor of that? What's the downside?
I don't know what a downside would be. Maybe some people that are feeling that the evidence has been tainted, that is old evidence, and that there's no way that you can be 100% sure that it is going to get to the right person being convicted. Because I don't know how soon the kits that they're talking about are, because they're talking about cold cases. Then some of
you're saying the evidence may not be reliable.
The evidence may not be reliable, and I don't know.
Okay, that's a concern. Okay,
that would be
fair enough.
That I think people would have, and everything. I mean, we just recently had some other stuff in our local news, because apparently you'll love this one. Lee, Durham Public School staffers reacted after workers were allowed to keep their 2023 overpayments. So we actually had some teachers that were overpaid, and definitely that.
Wait a minute, why would they be able to keep something overpaid in error?
Huh?
Why would you let someone keep something in error?
Apparently they were feeling that it would maybe too much of a hassle to go back and get it, or all along those lines. But definitely that.
Are these employees?
Employees of
that were terminated or are no longer working?
Apparently they were allowed to keep their overpayment, and I'm actually looking it up to find out the reason for those overpayments and all along. fearing that workers will instead get to keep the money Durham Public Schools accidentally overpaid them. So, and it's definitely they can't take money back for the simple fact that we had nothing to do with their mistake, is what one of the people
That doesn't
said.
matter.
Yeah.
If you walk out of a store and someone accidentally puts jewelry in your bag, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put it in my bag. You can't take it out. That's an excuse,
Like I said, there are several people.
but you didn't pay for it.
These are different jobs. I mean, everything from librarians to janitors. And
No, I get all that. But if the bank makes a mistake, puts money in your account, and you take it, you're going to be prosecuted.
Are you? Because I know quite a few people that have gotten money that has been accidentally paid and all along those lines. And then the sometimes if the money is found, then they sometimes come back for it or ask for it or reassess it and get it back again and everything. But some people, and it comes back to what y'all were talking about with the whole notion of oversight and administration. Some people choose to ignore that and to let the loss of the money go by versus because they figure it's too much.
Because it's not worth the fight. I understand that.
It's not worth the fight. Right. And that's what I imagine happened in this particular case and everything along those lines. So definitely there are some people that are saying that our school system is under fire. And that's actually what one of the people said. And one of the physical therapists said she's now recognized for 7 years of experience instead of the 40 that she had. So there's a lot of things that are going on in this notion and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and I'll be following that story, and maybe I'll get some more details later. But right now it's time for us to wrap up. It's been another fun show. I know we've got the chess recording at 12:05, not 12 o'clock, because I got to do the other show introduced. But we'll start that at
Y'all have a good day. God bless.
12:05, and
Take
we'll
care,
be back with
Sasha.
more conversation tomorrow. Bye.
What's that, Mark? Any update on your LinkedIn account?
No update as of yet. It's going to take at least a while to get it updated, but hopefully it'll happen sooner versus later. But I'm still waiting to hear back some things from them.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.